just been consistently impressed with the power of that card when it comes down on turns 3 or 4. It's often, I think, strong enough to apply the counter pressure so that you can race the Hunter after you regain board.
I will say, though, that if you are off coin as the Shaman, it feels like turn 3, playing a 4-5 and not necessarily removing anything is sometimes too slow. I love the Forgeborn when you're on coin and start with the Elemental, can play at turn 2. That is the absolute nuts. But against Face Hunter, this is one of the few decks in the meta, I think, that likes to be off coin, start turn 1. And even if they are on coin, they have ways to abuse that with the Kolkar Pack Runner. Surrender here, not with an ideal 1-drop, nor really an ideal 2-drop. But okay, the draw of Adorable Infestation now presents the possibility of him sticking 2 minions for a turn 3 Wriggling Horror.
Yeah, for us to translate how Surrender is feeling, one of the first things you should learn to speak Surrender, that's pretty impressive, is a quick look to the left means that was unfortunate, as he got none of the really good 1-drops. But that Adorable Infestation does help smooth things out drastically. He could now go Wound, Pray Face, and then rush in. Okay, you can just go with the Marcel Cub as well. Miss a bit of damage to Face, but save that rush for later on makes a good amount of sense. But as we were saying, this is the curve that you are looking for. The Kindling, the Coin Forgeborn, he's got it all.
He's got the turn 2. This is what you need to beat Hunter. I do think Hunter ends up like a very slight favorable outside of this curve from Shaman, especially, you know, when the Hunter is on play. I think that gives them free reign to just wreak havoc in the early game and then be happy even if they're not ahead on board around the mid game, because then they're just chucking burn spells face. But now GivePLZ is turning up the gas. Surrender already has to decide whether this is worth trading into, and I think no way.
I am never trading here. This is where Elemental Shaman kind of starts to struggle. They have these powerful battle cries. Like, for example, Arid Stormer here would be incredibly powerful, but it's not clearing everything. You should be able to sneak in some amount of damage, and if they don't have it, you're looking great.
Sorry, excuse me? The Menacing Nimbus just generated another Forgeborn.
I didn't even see.
Sir, that's not legal. Okay, raiding it back in though. Surrender, this Neophyte is huge, right? It means Surrender only gets to play 1 spell alongside the Kolkar Pack Runner. 2 rushes would be pretty perfect here, so he could allocate 1 into the 4-3 and then maybe just like have another thing on board, or alternatively just use the rushes to kill the 3-2 and send everything else face. So right now, I think it's still going to be Wound Prey with the Kolkar Pack Runner. But it's really not as clean as he would like, right? Because he could have had 3 rushers here instead of just 2 with the Wound Prey.
Is it even Kolkar Pack Runner? Is there any merit to thinking you can go like tracking into something? I don't know, assume you'll draw a card you can play, Barak, and then you go for a massive turn with your Kolkar to try and swing everything back?
It's really, really close. I think spending 2 mana on not getting more on board is a little bit too slow for Surrender's game plan, because you kind of just have to assume you never truly get the board back against the Shaman with this many discounts. Okay, I think the Arid will steer GivePLZ away from a Forgeborn again this turn. It's too
agreed
here, right?
Yeah, the number one, like, board control has been won. It might not look like it, but GivePLZ has won board control. He just needs to stem the flow of bleeding here, which he can do very, very well with just Storm and Neophyte. I mean, it's an obvious play, but I think it's probably the most powerful as well.
And his next turn is Forgeborn Cage Match and floats a mana. I guess that's not the end of the world. It's still cheating quite a bit. If he is playing the Stormer, it's probably going into 2-1-2-2, 4-3 into 2-3, and then 2-2 into a 1-1, which leaves only 2 damage for Surrender and very favorable board state for GivePLZ. Going with a Cage Match over the Neophyte here, this is perhaps very smart, because maybe he wants to go for a Neophyte on a turn where he's actually blocking lethal from hand possibilities, which is currently not available for Surrender, even if he had aim shot, quick shot, say.
Oh, I wonder, I even wonder if taking the VT there with the Menacing Nimbus was the way to go. Like, again, it's good to get counter pressure, I suppose, is the main thing, but I just don't want a single extra point of damage. We've seen what can happen. Like, imagine if it was Rinlings here and they get explosive, or if they just go aim shot face and hero power. Like, there's so much damage that can come through. You need to stop it.
That's true. And Surrender is running the Rinlings rifle. Some people have cut it, but it does provide utility that's otherwise not available in this deck. And with the Barracuda Vein, GivePLZ will know 100% that there is an aim shot and a quick shot in hand. Those are the only options for 2 and 3 cost spells. Wound Prey could be the third, I guess. Oh, sorry, he's played 2, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so no more damage straight to face from the 1 cost spells at least.
I mean, it's not much of a consolation, is it? Because this is still a huge amount of damage with just quick shot and aim shot alone. Surrender, of course, just needs to do the thinking. Do I kill this Arid Stormer? That is the scariest minion on this board, I believe, even though Forgeborn, of course, has more stats, because Rockbiter can just be played on this Arid Stormer, which equals a lot of damage, a lot of racing potential.
But Surrender will also know about the Doomhammer in hand because the cage match has been played, so that also provides quite a bit of racing potential. Surrender, in the end, chooses not to blink. He is sending the Wriggling Horror face, and in terms of burst he has from hand, the mana doesn't actually work out that great the very next turn, but he's hoping to win over 2 turns, right, because he's at that healthy 30. And so for GivePLZ, if he's playing around maximum 7 from hand right now with aim shot hero power, then all he has to really do is clear the board and then go for the Neophyte the turn after, maybe? But
yeah, I don't
the
think
clearing is inconvenient.
Right, because it's really difficult, but you can start to figure out what they are likely to do in terms of just launching burn each turn. Like if they go, wow. Is he ignoring these minions?
Yeah, I think he's saying he's not giving Surrender 2 turns. He's saying if you have maximum 7 from hand and 5 on board, that is not lethal just yet.
This is bold.
Here's 1 minion, but he does end up with a 2-turn setup and put Surrender on having either the explosive trap from Rinlings or the second pack runner. That's enormous. Surrender gets to clear this real easy now.
That is so big. He can play the Kolkar. He can even launch the spell's face. Like he can go quick shot face, adorable one of his guys or tracking or whatever, and pretty much clear every relevant minion off the board, or every minion with the adorable.
Yeah, I love it. Quick shot face right now. He still has mana allocated for quick shot hero power. I mean, aim shot hero power the next turn. He'll be so far ahead on board, and on only 4 mana, GivePLZ needs to have exactly double Rockbiter to win the game from off board. Surrender has no way of playing around that currently, so you just clear the board and remove all the other outs, it looks like. Tracking picks up a Demon Companion as well, so Surrender's just won the board again. And he gets a taunt! The Shima removes the double Rockbiter out!
I mean, I was going to say that's the bad one because it's not damage face, but it is actually, like you said, just pretty much the nuts, stopping any kind of lethal outs. You probably then have to trade and hero power face. He's not going for the trade, he's going face, which means there's an out for Rockbiter specifically off the top.
Oh, man, I'm surprised to see that Surrender left himself vulnerable to that. I wanted to see like either quick shot into face and then maybe one.
Right.
I can't remember where the rushers went, but I thought he would be able to. If he couldn't have cleared this last 2-2 with rushers, then quick shot into minion, end up far ahead on board. I think still look pretty good because GivePLZ isn't running Dunk Tank or anything like that. He had no good way of clearing this board. Perhaps Surrender was scared of Canal Slugger.
Yeah, Canal Slugger is scary. I mean, I was going to say Lily Pad Lurker, but an Elemental wasn't even played last turn, so the ability to clear the Barrack wasn't really there. And in the end, GivePLZ loses the face race, throws it down, Surrender taking the win. What a dense game. So many decisions to be made in such a short space of time. I wonder if, had GivePLZ gone for a more defensive route, decided to trade more, would he have been able to get there once his Doomhammer got multiple swings? Should Surrender have gone more defensive in his own right to lock out outs from his opponents? So many different ways to try and maximize your percentages.
Yeah, I have to take a look at that again. I think at the end there he left GivePLZ at 10, was it? So, oh sorry, at 10. When he gave himself, or he gave GivePLZ the out of being able to go for Rockbiter lethal, double Rockbiter lethal. But did putting GivePLZ at 10 remove his outs to survive the next turn by just playing a Canal Slogger? That would have then put GivePLZ at 16 HP, and then there would be like 3 or 4 attack left for Surrender. Man, I can't do the math this quickly. That is a much more complex game than it looked like, because both players were not just playing with their boards and what's in hand. They had to think about all the possible outs. The healing ability from Shaman makes it even more complex. But in the end, it's Surrender who is going to move forward with the win, and now he's on the aggro elemental Shaman.
He is indeed, and he's got an interesting list. He's cut the Neophytes, of course, in exchange for double Diligent Note Taker, plus Lilypad Lurker, which, when you think about it, is a pretty interesting swapping out, actually, because both the Diligent... When Diligent Note Taker is in a deck that only runs 2 different spells in the Rockbiter weapon and the Storm Strike, it's pretty much an anti-combo card, realistically, or just to get you a bit of extra burst, which Neophyte does a lot of the time anyway. So I'd be wondering what gets more splash damage, like what is also good against the aggro decks, for example.
Worth thinking about when we get there, but for now I'm interested on who gets to get the early curve going. Obviously Surrender's keeping this Wailing Vapor, but my question was, is Dungeoneer worth it? I think if you are the player with the privilege of going first, you should just go all in on making sure you can buff and stay ahead on board with the Wailing Vapor on 1. So Surrender takes the risk to find 2 drops, preferably a Forgeborn or even a Kindling of his own or second Wailing Vapor, but completely whiffs. So now he's looking for cards off the top to really make sure he doesn't fall behind without the coin.
Yeah, it's looking pretty disastrous for Surrender at the moment. Even that Primordial, like, you have to wait a turn, then you don't have an Elemental chain active till the following turns, then I guess you pray that you hit, I don't know, Granite Forgeborn for the ideal, just to play on turn 4 into Lilypad Lurker, but it's all very slow, a little bit clunky, and in the meantime, GivePLZ is just going in.
Gyroworm is just so powerful in the mirror. Even though Surrender did find a way to buff the attack on his Wailing Vapor, the health of it made it still completely vulnerable to the Gyroworm. So now Surrender's going for a resource play. No real choice, really. But GivePLZ is so far ahead now. He can go for an early coin Canal Slogger if he likes. The healing, I think, is not super necessary as long as he stays ahead on board. And actually dealing 1 damage in this mirror is a very big inconvenience. You want to deal increments of 3 usually.
So while the obvious play is Primal Dungeoneer straight up, would you ever consider going Note Taker Coin Dungeoneer just to get an extra 2/3 on the board?
Cool. Interesting. That is super high tempo. I mean, I was saying I really like coin Canal Slogger into Dungeon next turn. I found that max tempo. But GivePLZ is going for option number 3, which is the slowest. And honestly, I am not a big fan of it. But maybe GivePLZ is saying, my hand has double Slogger. I always win in the late game, or like I can out-heal any type of burst push that Surrender is going for. But I remain unconvinced.
Yeah, I mean, Slogger was a really weird play because, like, it's a good body for 4 mana, but it's not insane, right? Like, 4 health is really not that good at seizing board control. If your opponent just goes Storm Strike or Gyroworm or Arid Stormer or whatever, obviously they didn't have the Elemental chain, but they could have just spelled it away on that turn, then you haven't really gained that much tempo. So not going for the Slogger when it doesn't get you the lifesteal, I think I'm on board with that.
Well, he would have ended with 3 minions on board here, right? Because I wanted the Slogger to go into the 3/3.
Yeah, that's true.
Minion into the 0/1, and he would have still had a Gyroworm here, right? So, yes, Storm Strike is inconvenient, but you stick a minion and then you go Dungeoneer the next turn. I felt like it was okay.
Okay.
But we'll see here from Surrender. I thought Rockbiter was really the only option here, but he is sticking it out with the hero powers, letting the Dungeoneer take this value trade over the menacing Nimbus. Speaking of which, GivePLZ is gonna play his own for very cheap because the first Forgeborn has hit the board.
Oh my god!
Wow!
What? I was just about to say, we've got a pretty clear battle of board control versus Doomhammer face race, and GivePLZ gets Light Shower Elemental. Hello?
And even then, I don't think Surrender has the license to just go Doomhammer here. It's not enough time, and he's super vulnerable to taunts. I guess Taunt Totem, he still has the Storm Strike for it, but is there enough time? This looks like either a Lily Pad or an Inara turn to me. I think he still has some avenues to get board control back because the Inara allows him to clear 4 damage from the board, and the Lily Pad, of course, just gets rid of the 4/5 immediately.
I disagree. I think you pray that they don't have any healing or anything like that. You go Doomhammer for 4 damage, double Rockbiter for 16, which is 20 overall, and then Storm Strike for another 10 equals 30. Like, you have lethal over 3 turns if you can just survive, and if they don't put any taunts in the way.
True. Against Doomhammer on the other side, you survive if they don't have the double Rockbiter follow-up. And by not playing any minions, you don't give them the Canal Slogger rush out. Question is, how does Doomhammer fare against just Canal Slogger on the board, even though it's not immediately rushing? You do have to respect that.
And to be fair to Surrender, even as I was saying it, I was far from certain that what I was saying was correct, as was he. You know, he was switching between Lilypad Lurker and Doomhammer at the end. 2 very distinct different avenues of gameplay he could have taken. And he went for the board control route for the moment at least, or, you know, if not board control, at least slowing down the damage. 4 is a lot from his opponent, and maybe he thinks that by even delaying for a turn on the Doomhammer, he is overall giving himself that little bit more time to actually unleash all his burst. It's very close.
So intricate. The back and forth of clearing board so you have more time to go face, and go face so your opponent doesn't have time to kill you. It's very, very close. And even now, the second charge of the Doomhammer, where does it go? Think Surrender. You did lay out that 3-turn setup, which is uninterrupted by like losing a charge on the Doomhammer, but the difference is that GivePLZ did heal for 6 a while ago, and you know, Surrender has no way to know about the Light Shower, which can't be played this turn, but Surrender did just use his Lilypad Lurker, so it's getting really, really...
Yeah, it's interesting. It can't be played this turn or next turn either now. So GivePLZ, again, taking an aggressive stance. He does not have Rockbiter, but he has Storm Strike, so if 4 damage sticks on board, he can still hypothetically get there.
Ooh, Note Taker's big. It allows Surrender to go for the Storm Strike and replenish it, and it means that GivePLZ is 1 off lethal, if I'm counting right.
1 damage off lethal. Obviously, the Diligent Note Taker doesn't leave him enough mana. Rockbiter off the top just instantly ends the game, of course. But Canal Slogger, even if it doesn't win him the game, it puts him in a very, very good position. Healing back up for that full 6 and leaving a lifesteal minion on the board is just brutal.
Yeah, I mean, he can fit in the Neophyte as well, right? So even though the Canal Slogger on its own is enough to stop the lethal from Surrender, the Neophyte is just the salt in the wound here. Nothing Surrender can really do outside of discovering something insane from Fireheart. Perpetual Flame into more stuff. It's not unheard of.
Yeah, that's true. I was going to say Lightning Storm, but Perpetual Flame is much better. If you go...
Because he needs to heal himself beyond 10 here.
Yeah, I was going to say Tidal Surge plus the Perpetual Flame, but I don't even think you have mana to do that.
He is... Oh, not overloaded, sorry. So Landslide doesn't really get the job done. So it is the Perpetual here. Only 3 mana left. I don't really know if he can heal here. And if he gets something like a taunt off of Feral Spirits, it's not playable because of the Neophyte.
Yeah, exactly. Now that Witch's Brew is out of standard rotation, I don't think for 2 mana there's anything in the Shaman pool of spells that can save him. Very close. A very close gameplay, a very close game, sorry. And one that I think Surrender will be looking back on. His decision to go for Lilypad Lurker on 5. Again, looking back was probably correct because it did mitigate the amount of damage that GivePLZ had each turn so drastically. But you've still got to be thinking, was there any way that I could have turned that one around?
Sure. I mean, it already looked like Dire Straits missing out on 2 good turns, because I think he pressed the hero power button twice in the early game, which you never want to do in the mirror, right? You just want to make sure you're playing out your resources as efficiently as possible, but starting off with the Inara in hand is definitely not what Surrender wanted to see. But still, hats off to GivePLZ. I was talking about early Canal Slogger take the tempo that way, but he held on to both of these, maybe just specifically to make sure that there was no good out for Surrender to ignore board and just go Doomhammer. The 12 healing locked out very significant breakpoints for Surrender to be able to deal his own Doomhammer lethal.
Yeah, and I think realistically for GivePLZ, it was correct to ignore the Light Shower Elemental. He was in such a good spot that he didn't need to go for it, especially with the Canal Slogger. Like, it's such a unique hand that allows Surrender to not play a single minion for you to rush into and represent lethal over those 2 turns without even playing the Note Taker, as we were saying, to get an extra bit of minion presence. But either way, in the end, it does mean that we equalized at 1 game apiece. Hunter taking a game for Surrender, Shaman taking a game for GivePLZ. And if I had to wager who I think that benefits, I would say GivePLZ is probably in a slightly better position. I think that Shaman slightly harder to get a win with in this essential mirror match of a series, specifically because when you factor in Quest Mage, Hunter just feels so much stronger of a matchup than Shaman.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I think in the early game, the Shaman curve, even if it does hit like some of the ramping cards, like damage increasing cards like the Wailing Vapor, the Mage can still generally keep up with that with their first flame, second flame, Brain Freeze, and importantly holding out till Fire Sale is a very, very big deal. But there's also the factor of Doomhammer, which Mage does not generally have good ways to play around, even though they can stop some of the damage with Ice Barrier. They can't freeze face consistently anymore ever since Frostbolt left standard. Yeah. And so it's going to be a bit harder to do that against Doomhammer. However, I do still agree that Face Hunter has a better go of it because they're not reliant on a singular card. Yes. They have many forms of burst in terms of just getting over the line versus Mage.
Well, already the Wunderkind, the Wunderkindling of Shaman, the Kindling Elemental in hand. It's like, now that Forgeborn is in play, it's gone from a decent card. It maybe lets you get out one of the 3 drops a turn earlier. So just the absolute nuts. I always want to see this in Shaman because it just allows you to do some truly broken combos.
It's the flow that lets you get an earlier flow, I've heard some people call it. The fact that you can ramp into your ramp card just turns this deck into near Druid levels of insane, right? It's like going Wild Growth into Overgrowth, Kindling into Forgeborn, and then the rest of your deck is absolutely nuts. The question is, does Surrender keep anything else in this hand, namely the card on the right? Doomhammer is what we were talking about, is pretty much necessary to get there against Mage.
It is, but is it to the point where we're keeping it? Like, I know that we're mulliganing for it a lot of the time, but with the Kindling in hand, you can get these very, very strong starts that maybe the Mage can't answer so quickly, but it looked like it was just a full keep from Surrender there, which is very surprising.
So this just looks like Doomhammer and all its friends, Diligent, Note Taker, and Rockbiter Weapon, so that's a coin... Not quite a coin Doomhammer curve, but say Doomhammer on 5 into those 2 on turn 6, even accounting for Overload. And that is possibly the best turn 5, turn 6 you can do against Mage. So Surrender's just saying, I want the best possible turn 1, which is, I guess, either Kindling or Vapor, and then rely on the top of his deck to give him turns 2 through 4, which is, it's very likely to do. The only thing you can't play by that point is the other Inara and, I guess, the other Doomhammer and Inara.
And I think the name Doomhammer and Friends here is very apt because a card who's literally called Diligent Note Taker, I think the fact that it could only get a hammer as its friend is probably quite appropriate for a nerd like that. But either way, not the best draw for Surrender, as obviously Double Custodian does not expend his mana very well unless he wants to coin one out, which he absolutely does not. And one of them is just a 2/2. It doesn't draw a Doomhammer at all. He was really hoping, if he threw away his Doomhammer, that he would draw these. And so now he's just straight up passing. Doesn't want to play any minions at all to allow GivePLZ to progress his quest.
Another happy guildie.
This is what we saw from Blitzchung yesterday, I believe, versus GivePLZ. Also just saying, I'm not going to play any minions until Doomhammer. And it's you know, that's just how you play against Mage. In the mirror, as Demon Hunter, you avoid playing minions unless you absolutely have to, but this is the crossroads now. Can you turn down the best possible minion?
You can't, right? It's so good. 3 mana Yeti flow. Hello?
Let's map out Surrender's curve if he does this. He can still coin Doomhammer the next turn. And then on turn 5, he has 3 mana.
Yeah. You can just go double cage match. Or just don't. Or just pass and keep swinging face. Like, you don't have to play minions from there on in.
So if the game plan is you're not going to play minions after that anyway, do you have to play a minion now? Does it actually get any damage face?
Are you really just not playing any minions? Like, why did we keep the kindling then? I guess you could just accept it was a mistake to keep the kindling, or maybe it's for something later on, but either way, very, very different to how I think the vast majority of players would approach this matchup.
Remains to be seen if this is the best way to go about things, but Surrender obviously was having a crisis himself, deciding whether it's worth it to give up the Granite Forgeborn here, but all this means... the salt in the wound! Yo, if he had played the one last turn, he could play this one and then the 2 cage matches for free, right?
Oh, man. Yeah, I mean, he would have a ridiculous amount of tempo, but even then, in your head, you're running through it. It's like, oh, what if they just go, you know, Fire Sail plus a Brain Freeze or whatever? That's almost my entire board gone. And so in the end, I can respect Surrender sticking to his game plan here. He's going with just the burn damage. He can draw another Doomhammer if he has time to do that as well, because it's going to be very difficult for GivePLZ to play these Frost spells.
Well, drawing the other Doomhammer will make it easier for GivePLZ to target something, because that involves playing the cage match.
Stormstrike your own guy. Who cares?
Okay, let's draw the Stormstrike then. I think that's all Surrender's really looking for, is those spells. There's only 3 spells left in the deck, the other Rockbiter and the 2 Stormstrikes, and he has committed to not playing minions this entire game, it feels like.
It's such a weird game plan, because it makes sense, obviously, right? You want to stop your opponent from progressing your quest. You just stick most of the cards they can play in the early game in their hand. They will be able to remove everything most likely you can play. But maybe that's just you're going too many levels deep. Like, if he had just gone Forgeborn, pray you get a good card off the top, you know, vomit the rest of your elementals, he might have got enough chip damage in to get there. It's so hard to tell.
Yeah, the difference between them clearing 80% and 100% could be the difference between Surrender actually having enough damage to get there, because in the meantime, GivePLZ is saying, all right, call your bluff. If you're not playing any minions, I'm just going to throw my burn at your face too. Like, GivePLZ has one of those Gur hands. It's double Ignite and Fireball. Yeah. And if he can't complete his quest, there's only one other thing he can do, which is race.
Yeah, I mean, he is at the moment playing a 9-card deck. It's Doomhammers, Rockbiters, Diligent Note Takers, the Stormstrikes, and Inara. That's all he cares about in his deck, is just the burn.
One Thief allows him... He doesn't even have Brain Freeze, right? It's only Flurry, so he can't give himself a Frost target at the moment. Fire spells are not the problem. Those can all go face. So you probably still just play out the Wand Thief since you don't have the Brain Freeze anyway. Maybe you can discover a better Frost spell from that.
Right.
Okay, gonna see what's in the orb first. Another Ignite?
Oh, is it Counterspell though? There's very, very few spells in the deck. If you can get rid of a Rockbiter weapon, I think that's the nuts.
True. Outside of any discovers from Fireheart, literally every spell that Surrender runs is damage from this point.
And if you can stop it from doing, from activating Note Taker as well, like that's potentially like 12 health you could gain off that one counter spell if you want to be optimistic. Sure, take another one.
I like it. Yeah. Evocation.
I think it's the best by miles.
Not getting anything done. There is so little space in hand. The only downside to playing One Thief is potentially Canal Slugger, which has entered the hand. But GivePLZ is saying, okay, you play a minion, I'm happy. It's just like chess.
Man, I think I might have been watching too much Olympics because those double counter spells look like they should be a synchronized swimming team right there. They've got a great form, very synchronized.
Yeah, the water in the background.
Yeah, exactly. All right, finally it's time.
Going for it. He has decided now the time to play minions is when they can come down pretty much all at once. It takes not just Fire Sale to deal with this. And there's currently no Fire Sale in hand for GivePLZ.
No, I think this is very, very smart for Surrender because it accomplishes two things. Obviously, as you said, it bulks your threats together so that it's more difficult for your opponent to remove them all at once. And at the same time, it actually plays a cage match custodian. He was going to have to do that anyway, I think, to get the other Doomhammer, to get just that little bit of extra damage to get over the finish line. But even then, as impressive of a board as it is, GivePLZ just laughs at this. Double Flurry already instantly deals with it, even ignoring the myriad of other removal spells in hand.
Yeah, I think he'd like to chuck in... Well, he doesn't have to use the Devolving, right? Because the counter spells are arcane spells.
Yeah.
So we could just see Ignite into Flurry here. Alternatively, Hot Streak Ignite if he also wants to fit in the counter spell, and that would just give him the Varden by this point, right?
2 out of 3. Arcane is the other one. Yeah. Then you go for it next turn. My goodness.
And he's just safe behind a barrier, and something that Surrender doesn't know is Counterspell.
You don't know, but you have to plan pretty heavily for it. I think, like, the other secrets, they would have to have disastrous other options for them to pick them, because they just do nothing in the matchup.
Yeah.
And you know it's not another ice barrier, of course.
I don't think GivePLZ is in one of those like old Spell Mage mirror situations where you can take barrier plus rigged fair game, where they never really want to proc your barrier, so you feel like you can go rigged fair game. But Surrender has to proc barrier to win this game. It's simply non-negotiable. All of his spells and damage outside of Gyre Worm comes from attacking face.
Oh, this one is just brutal to see the counterspell completely negating it ever having been played. You can go with another couple of elementals, try and just, again, win board that way. This is the benefit of Surrender's game plan, clumping his threats together very cleverly. But still, I wonder if it's going to be enough. GivePLZ, the only thing holding him back is that he hasn't played a flow so far. So his game plan is... it's a little bit more clunky than it would otherwise be. If he played a flow, this would just be insta-GG.
It's very clunky, and also no access to Fire Sale still. It just...
True.
He can't get away with playing Varden this turn. He'll be dead.
Oh, it's close, isn't it?
How much can he even clear, even without playing Varden here? It's one Flurry left, so we could see Ignite on 2-2, and then Devolving. Try your luck there. Start Flurry and try your luck with Varden Cram Session? Whoa, those are pretty good targets. It's the Wind Fury and the 6 attack.
Yeah, those are like the two best targets, which I guess does allow you to go Varden. And then you could obviously go with the Ignites, but I think he's just banking on the fact that he's not going to die the following turn, or maybe drawing another Flurry to keep himself alive.
Wow. This was a huge calculated risk from GivePLZ, right?
Huge risk.
He's 12 on board, so he is dead to either like double Storm Strike plus Rockbiter, or any one of those plus Doomhammer. And also Gyre Worm. I forgot to account for that.
Yeah.
So he does have to go Flurry again.
Yes. Yeah.
Another happy guilty.
Just to stay alive.
Okay.
Could get that out with First Flame.
Is it worth it to kill the Note Taker? I mean, I would blink here. I'd absolutely play the First Flame, but maybe that removes some of GivePLZ's own outs for next turn, because he doesn't actually have that much card draw. I respect it.
Man, that was a brave turn from GivePLZ, but it's worked out for him. What can Surrender even do? Varden, obviously, is going to be sticking around here unless you want to go Gyre Worm double trade. I guess you're kind of forced into it, because if that goes face, you have to expect you're dead.
I mean,
Maybe.
That's how I thought GivePLZ's turn would go last turn. You have to expect you're dead if you leave some of this up. He did leave some of it up. Yes, he did get the best 4 Flurry outcomes. And yes, he did draw the Flurry, but now he's put Surrender in a position where, because he took that risk, Surrender now has to blink. Or does he? Did all just face? Let's think, right? So GivePLZ 0 flows played. If the Varden goes face, he needs 19 damage. That's like a
Quite a
fireball
lot.
and 2 ignites.
Yeah.
It's not that much, honestly. Doomhammer always happens. Yes, Surrender still debating on whether the Jarworm goes on Varden with the trades, and he says no. So he's just dead. GivePLZ has it.
Yeah, he's just got it. Obviously, Surrender knows how unlikely this was to work, but you just have to take the risk that maybe all their burn is buried down right at the bottom of their deck. GivePLZ taking it up 2-1. What a weird game. I wonder if we were to watch Surrender play that 100 times over, would he go for the same strategy every time? Because, you know, to be honest, I think while he had a good game plan, it didn't feel like he was certain on his game plan. It felt like he was working it out on the fly. You know, when he had should he keep the Kindling Elemental? Obviously, it was not that impactful in this game, but, you know, I guess in a way it was impactful. It allowed him to go for the double Granite Forgeborn, double Cage Match Custodian turn 1 turn earlier because the banked mana lasted like 5 turns. It was such a weird game and one that I think probably was played well by Surrender. Again, I'm not certain, but I liked his strategy, I think.
There's just so much more we need to learn about this matchup, and as we watch the meta progress, I think players will come to a consensus on how to play the matchup, and, you know, does that decision change depending on how many Forgeborns you get, etc., etc. But to me, the whole story of this was just the hand tension. We've talked about board tension before, where first person has to decide who is going to take the trades, and then the person who gets the license to go face is a lot happier about it. But here it was like, does Surrender have the capability to play all his threats in such a way and in such a timing that GivePLZ does not get to play Varden? I thought that Surrender had navigated that perfectly.
Yeah, same.
GivePLZ says, even though there is this much pressure, there is a way I win this game in the long run by playing Varden and hoping that I get the perfect answers to this board. GivePLZ was saying, if I just answer this board and don't play Varden, then I eventually lose to Doomhammer. And even though I don't know the odds of GivePLZ's play working out, like, it was a perfect demonstration that there was a way for him to win the game before Surrender could even think about racing.
Man, very, very cool one, and one to look back on for sure. But now, a matchup that Surrender in my head is already famous for winning yesterday. Mage versus Hunter. Obviously, not a good matchup because, you know, as I keep comparing both aggro Elemental Shaman and Face Hunter, they are relatively similar decks. They have the board presence early on and then they transition into a very heavy burn. The big difference is Ice Barrier and how both decks interact with that. Shaman has to go face. As we saw, Doomhammer swings face. That is literally your only burst. You have nothing that just comes from hand, aside from Jaya as a tiny little bit of extra. But Face Hunter does not have that problem. Quick shot, aimed shot, Rhino can do it as well, Wound Prey, so many effects, just the hero power even, that can keep going face without proccing the Ice Barrier, which makes it a brutally difficult matchup for the Mage, but one that Surrender piloted excellently yesterday and ended up winning as well in what was a very, very well played series overall. And if he did it yesterday, why not again today?
Well, that's pretty much not how numbers work, I think. I mean, if we are going to say that something is favored and so on. Pretty much everything that went right for Surrender yesterday was that Lambi series had a hand that pretty much had no cards with the word shot on them. Those are the ones that Mage does not want to see. Quick shot, aim shot, piercing shot do not have anything to do with the board other than, I guess, piercing shot, which is easy enough for Hunter to maneuver to deal 5 damage. And so it became kind of this game of chicken around Fire Sale because Lambi series had to rely on his board primarily for damage. Surrender was kind of just waiting for the perfect Fire Sale that gave him the time to also complete his quest and be able to get down the Varden, right? Lambi series had this key turn where he played down an Intrepid Initiate instead of 2/5/3 Volpertingers, thinking that that would bait out the first Fire Sale, and then he could just ignore the possibility of a second one, go in with the Volpertingers. But Surrender did not, he called the bluff there, went for a different clear instead of Fire Sale, and from there proceeded to complete the quest in a timely fashion.
Yeah, very timely indeed. He always had on his mind counter pressure. How am I winning this game rather than just trying to survive, holding onto his burn very, very effectively to finish off the Hunter shortly after. As you say, the shot cards are very important to be able to kill your opponent later on in the game. But do you anticipate a weird game plan like we saw with the Shaman there, where you're not playing any minions so that they can't shoot your guys, and you just mulligan purely for the burn cards, or is it just standard Face Hunter game plan overall?
I think it's standard Face Hunter outside of like the matchups where you'd want to keep, say, Warsong Wrangler. That's not a keep versus Mage anymore. I would still like to see keeping of cards like Intrepid Initiate, Kolkor Pack Runner, depending on whether you have the coin and the early curve to go with it, and Adorable Infestation. That one's a really big one to buff your Initiate or buff your first threat outside of the range of First Flame. And you are running Cult Neophyte in this deck to help with the Mage matchup and a bunch of other ones. That is an absolute keep versus Mage. Because you are supposed to still get in some minion damage in the early game, like probably not realistically beyond turn 3, turn 4, but that early chip damage is a required supplement to the burn damage later on, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think that even if they do have those removal cards, until they hit turn 3 with the coin or turn 2 with Hot Streak, it's only Fire Sale that you need to be really, really afraid of, especially if you can hit those Cult Neophytes. That is where things get very, very difficult for Mage. The only 1 mana 2 damage spell being First Flame, or Second Flame, of course, if you've already played the first half. And outside of that, it can be very, very difficult to answer the board. So we'll see. We'll see what GivePLZ goes for in terms of his mulligan strategy. I think Surrender should, for the most part, be on completing your quest quickly, but through the form of focusing on removal. Obviously, the cards that you're looking for become much more focused on still Incantus Flow is the absolute nuts, but Ice Barrier, First Flame, Brain Freeze, and Fire Sale as well, just to have those removal options before you transition into trying to kill them later on.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you brought up the interaction between Cult Neophyte and First Flame, because that's exactly what happened yesterday with Lambie and Surrender, where Lambie went for the Neophyte. It removed Brain Freeze outs, it removed Incanter's Flow on curve as a possibility, but against exactly the First Flame, it kind of just becomes like a failed investment. Like you played your 2 mana Disrupt Mage's turn in order to guarantee yourself 3 damage from the Neophyte, possibly 4 if you stick it as an Adorable Infestation target. But if they manage to answer that first checkpoint cleanly, then you fall so far behind, and Mage, their mana becomes uninterrupted from then on.
Indeed. In terms of the rest of the series, as we are sorting out some tech issues, I think Surrender had some problems, and now GivePLZ is having some problems, but we'll get into it as soon as we possibly can. The way this will go, obviously for Surrender, he needs to win 2 times against the Hunter, but should he get the win with the Mage, as unlikely as that may be, I think it might start to get a little bit better. He has Shaman versus Hunter, which even though he won the matchup the other way around earlier on, I still think is very, very reasonable, very winnable for the Shaman if he's able to get there. And he has been playing very well so far today, yesterday. So again, as I say, it's an unfavorable, but if anyone can do it, I believe our boy Surrender is that one to do so. But here we go. Ready, I believe, to jump into the game now. Mage versus Hunter. Let's go.
Oh, First Flame? Whew. Yeah, you'll love to see it. And GivePLZ does have Cult Neophyte. He has Volpertinger into Cult Neophyte and the option to go Coin Neophyte, and then if he gets a 1-drop, play something alongside the Volpertinger. While I did say you are very happy to see cards with the word shot on them versus Mage, maybe not this early. I think if you see the Neophyte, you really want to double down on the insurance that gives you with things like Adorable Infestation. So he is just going to keep the 2 on the left.
Yeah, I think very smart. You're very possibly going to be going Coin Neophyte because it disrupts the flow primarily, but also, as we were saying, disrupts a lot of the removal as well. Ignite, Rune Door, Brain Freeze all becomes a lot less powerful. But if you don't have a second 1-drop, then you probably just have to follow the mana curve. This would be too awkward to go Coin Neophyte. And so just 1, 2, 3, follow up with the damage thereafter and pray it gets there.
Surrender actually ends up keeping the Primordial Studies as well, which I wonder if it partially informed GivePLZ's decision to not go quite Neophyte. I think that decision was more influenced by the fact that GivePLZ didn't have like a 1-drop to follow up. If he started with Coin Neophyte, it would just be Volpertinger the next turn, which is a bit awkward. But it is going to work out better for GivePLZ this way because the Coin Neophyte would have been eaten by a First Flame very, very easily by Surrender.
So this is a weird choice because Imprisoned Phoenix is obviously what's speaking to me the most here because you can just play it. But then you look at the turn it wakes up, which is 4, the Fire Sale turn, which then makes it seem bad. But maybe that's just okay. If you're hitting Mancrick then as well, if you're hitting the Wrangler as well, that extra 2 spell damage just for a 5 damage AoE rather than 2 damage AoE from the Fire Sale, I think is a very smart play.
Yeah, I like it as well. And honestly, even if you don't end up in a situation where you Fire Sale, you do just have a Cram Session in hand that's still strong with Phoenix, even with no Varden played. And my general rule of thumb when playing Mage versus Hunter is that you can have like an outline plan in your mind, but in every case, there's going to be 3 or 4 ways that your Hunter opponent can deviate from your plan and make it more awkward. So the best thing you can do is just spend your mana as efficiently as possible. This will be 1 mana that if Surrender took anything else, it's just going to be a card draw. It's not something that's on the board or will be on the board in a couple turns. So I do like the Phoenix pick for that reason as well.
I like the Phoenix pick, but on the other side, I love this play from GivePLZ. Coin Mancrick over the Neophyte seems so weird because he doesn't have a strong follow-up. But again, it's this interaction with Fire Sale, the unspoken, behind the unspoken elephant in the room almost of what you are playing around the entire time as Hunter. And he's navigated this perfectly. Even if it hadn't got the Initiate off the top, it still would have been the correct play, I believe, because it just means all this damage is so hard to clear. Surrender is going to tank a lot of damage here.
Yeah, the Neophyte disrupts not just Fire Sale, but something like Cram Session plus First Flame, Ruined Orb plus First Flame. Surrender can only play 1 card here. Unless he gets like exactly Hot Streak off of the Ruined Orb, then he could go Hot Streak into Second Flame.
Right.
That'd be the nuts. He could trade away the Fire Sale to look for Hot Streak as way, but do you want to get rid of Fire Sale? Oh.
What to do?
No, you do not is the answer to that. And so going for Ruined Orb just to try and clear up any damage he can. Gets a second Fire Sale. You're probably just trading one of those away, to be honest.
I agree. There's still the... Oh, yeah. Sorry, if you trade, you don't have mana to play Hot Streak anymore. So, but still, I think he has to play it because this is not a game where he can afford to spend 8 mana on clearing, because by that point he will be very, very dead. So 1 Fire Sale, look for something a bit more efficient to go alongside it. I definitely agree.
So obviously for GivePLZ, with a hand like this, the real question, I think the turning point for this game is, do we have to clear this Phoenix? He has so much burst damage in hand. He could very well, I think, just get away with ignoring it. But that is where things could get pretty scary, because Surrender can go turbo with this +2 spell damage.
Can he, though? Without any flows played? Yeah, he can get more damage on his damage spells, but, like, so you can clear a 4/3 for 1 mana instead of 2? I don't think that's a very big deal. GivePLZ here, I think, is doing the right thing by just saying this is probably my last turn where I can go face without having to care about Ice Barrier. And then, yeah, he just has all the burn in hand. This is exactly what he wants to see. The burn from Surrender's hand is not going to be scary since GivePLZ is still at 30. So I definitely like ignoring the Phoenix.
Ice Barrier, as as pressing as it may feel to play it, GivePLZ will very happily just ignore attacking face for the rest of the game. It's not a priority at all. With double aim shot, quick shot, aim shot, double quick shot, he should be able to very handsomely close out this game, whether or not these 1/1s go face.
Aim shot hero power for the 7, and next turn triple quick shot hero power for the 8. 1 damage off lethal, but I'm gonna say that Surrender is not gonna find a way to kill GivePLZ by next turn anyway.
Yeah, I think for GivePLZ here, again, it was a short game, not all too many decisions, but every one he made I absolutely loved. Specifically, the 2 main decisions, coining out the Mancrick and ignoring the Phoenix. When you lay it out, obviously it seems quite simple, but for a noob such as myself, it maybe wasn't quite so obvious as it may have appeared. And it's led him to what looks like a very easy win.
Yeah, completely
Or
agree.
convincing, I shall say.
Yeah. The coin Mancrick, I think, is the big one there because it wasn't so obvious because he didn't have a clean turn 3 by then other than, I guess, aim shot, but you would much rather Neophyte. He kind of got bailed out by the top deck of the Intrepid Initiate there, but I think GivePLZ recognized that even if he didn't get a 1-drop to play alongside Neophyte, just the fact that he's able to very likely stick damage because he's playing the Neophyte into a protective turn against Fire Sale, that's enough to get there over the long run. Because GivePLZ, he didn't need to end the game this soon, right? He's still at 30. Even if Surrender had 1 or 2 more turns to complete quest, that's 1 or 2 more turns GivePLZ could have pressed hero power twice and recouped the damage he would have had from like an Intrepid Initiate not being there.
And there it is. Surrender can't help chuckling at the end. It was, you know, I won't say a fluke that he was able to win Mage versus Hunter yesterday, but it's an outlier. It's a truly awful matchup. One of the main reasons why Hunter is looking so dominant here in Asia Pacific. And while I am, you know, sad for Surrender, it would have been cool to see him go all the way through to the finals on his first day. I am delighted for GivePLZ, playing well, bringing good decks, and just showing us that he does belong right up at the top of the standings here in Asia Pacific. One of the best that we have to offer here in our region of Grandmasters, and doing it time after time. Love what I'm seeing.
Definitely so. And I think I just want to throw it out there that if anybody's doing some fantasy drafts for their GMs out there, don't sleep on my boy GivePLZ. He's really, really good. It's just unfortunate that we don't perhaps get to know him as well as a lot of other players because he's not quite so active on Twitter, where most Hearthstone players tend to vent their frustrations and celebrate their victories. But what we have seen from GivePLZ on stream is, you know, obvious investment in the game. Like when he does get the bad draws, when he gets the worst end of things, he is visibly